Hachette Audio presents Death of a Spy, written by M.C. Beaton, with R.W. Green. Read by David Monteith. Foreword by R.W. Green. Those of you who know Hamish Macbeth, and who know a bit about Loch Dhu, the village where he lives in Sutherland, in the far northwest of the Scottish Highlands, will also know what the Loch Dhu residents think of their local police officer. He's a lazy, work-shy layabout who'd rather be scrounging cups of coffee at the Tommel Castle Hotel or the Italian restaurant in the village than concentrating on the ever-growing list of important matters with which he should be dealing. How can we all sleep safe in our beds with only this dunderhead standing between us and the hordes of lawless scunners rampaging around the Highlands? Well, that's what some of them think. But does that sound like the Hamish you know? Why would any of the good folk of Loch Dhu have such a low opinion of him? Why brand him as lazy? Basically, that all comes down to the wonderful M.C. Beaton, Marion. When she first created her Highland policeman around 40 years ago, Marion decided that he should be an outsider rather than a Loch Dhu native. Having lived in Sutherland for a while, but having been born and brought up way down south in Glasgow, Marion knew that making him an outsider would give him a little extra work to do in winning over the people who lived on his patch. She decided, therefore, that he was born outside Sutherland in Cromarty, which is to the southeast, and raised in Rogart, which is in the east of Sutherland, about as far away from the fictional Loch Dhu on the west coast as you can get without leaving the county. Marion also knew that it takes a special kind of fortitude to live and work in a place as remote and with such an unforgiving climate as Sutherland. She maintained that Sutherlanders can, justifiably, set themselves apart from the rest of the UK population. They have to work hard, and when that work is outdoors, often in harsh conditions. That leads them to reserve judgment on newcomers until they've seen if they have what it takes, and that could take a lifetime. Whether the interloper has come from London, Edinburgh, Glasgow, or closer to home, like Hamish, outsiders can remain outsiders until their dying day. As an outsider in Loch Dhu, Hamish was not only different, but was seen to be doing things differently. His relaxed, laid-back manner rankled with some, and the fact that he lived at the police station in what they saw as a free house, as well as driving around in a free car, made his attitude seem all the more lackadaisical. From there, Marion was able to instill a little jealousy and even a pinch of resentment towards Hamish among some of the Loch Dhu residents. What they failed to realise, of course, was that being a rural police officer is far more work than it might seem. Unlike UK city cops who clock off at their station and change out of their uniforms to travel home anonymously, although they're still required to intervene should they come across some kind of incident, to neighbourhoods where most of the other residents will have no idea what they do for a living, police officers in rural areas are almost constantly on duty. Everyone knows who they are, where they live, and how to contact them, should the need arise. They are a vital part of the local community. Hamish, therefore, works long hours. He also looks after his pets, Lugs and Sonsie, while also tending to his chickens in their garden shed and a few sheep up on the hillside. Choosing to cope with all that doesn't sound like the behaviour of a lazy man, does it? Despite all his hard work, Hamish will never either expect or receive credit for his efforts from some in Loch Dhu. They see a public servant as public property, paid for from the public purse, and with a healthy dose of Highland thrift, they expect to get their taxpayer money's worth. Being underappreciated is not something that troubles Hamish in the slightest. Part of the perception of him being lazy stems from his lack of ambition. He will happily allow others further up the police chain of command to take credit for his efforts as long as he is allowed to continue leading a quiet life in Loch Dhu. In the village he can use guile and a little rule-bending to remain in control of his own destiny. The last thing he wants is a promotion that would mean leaving the area he has come to love so much. That is the Hamish Marian introduced me to. She seemed to know him so well that I had to ask her if he was based on someone she knew. Surely he hadn't come entirely from her imagination. She had a little twinkle in her eye when she told me that neither Hamish nor any of the other characters in Loch Dhu were created entirely in her own head. As a former journalist, Marian always liked to have the TV news playing somewhere in the background. She watched people on TV and, like all good journalists, she was an excellent observer. She observed people she met, even those simply passing by in the street, and identified different physical attributes, different habits, and different personality traits, committing them to memory, drawing on that jumble of mental images when she built a new character. That's the long-winded analysis. The way she explained it was simply that she remembered bits and pieces about people and used them as and when she needed. I learned a huge amount from Marian and regard it as an enormous honour that she was happy for me to carry her characters forward into new adventures, adding a few new faces here and there when the need arose. New faces are actually what Sutherland desperately needs. It is a vast area with an enormous coastline and scenery that ranges from beautifully bleak moorland to majestic mountain ranges. In all, it covers over 2,000 square miles, yet has a population of only 13,500. Compare that to Greater London, which covers just 607 square miles, but has a population of more than 9.6 million. Sutherland also has an ageing population. Young people grow up and move away for career opportunities in the big cities, meaning that there are fewer young families in the region every year. Schools in Sutherland operate at 29% capacity, and the population decline is predicted to continue. That adds to the remoteness of the area. A recent survey defined remoteness by how easy it is for those living in a specific area to access a population centre of 10,000 people within 30 minutes. Apart from its far southeastern corner, Sutherland was judged the most remote place in the UK, including the Scottish Islands. At this point, we're in danger of confusing fiction and reality. Marian made Loch Dhu seem like a very real place by creating its setting, as she did its population, from bits and pieces of other places around Sutherland. You should go there and see for yourself. If you're like me, you won't be able to avoid the disappointment of not seeing signposts for the fictional Strathbane, Loch Dhu or Brakey when you're driving around. But there are plenty of other places that you will recognise from Hamish's travels. Poor Hamish is forever caught in a quandary. All he wants is to stay at home in Loch Dhu, yet to do so he has to hunt down ne'er-do-wells all over the country. In Death of a Spy, Hamish has to hit the road once again, but only once he's solved the problem of the Anstey Bridge disaster. I hope you enjoy this visit to Hamish Macbeth country as much as I did. Rod Green, 2024. Chapter 1. Every man at the bottom of his heart believes that he is a born detective. John Buchan, The Powerhouse. He watched the headlights sweep through swathes of darkness as he guided the car along the coast road. On this stretch there were no houses for miles around, no street lights, and tonight the moon wouldn't put in an appearance until well after midnight. To his right, the hillside climbed steeply up towards the craggy peaks and chill waters of the many tarns nestled in the crumpled mountain skirts of the 3,000-foot Ben Ban. To his left, the inky waters of the Inner Sound stretched 5 miles to the island of Raasay, where the hills shielded him from the even more distant lights of Portree on the Isle of Skye. Tonight, the black night was his friend, and the intrusion of his headlights made him feel almost guilty. Disturbing the still silence of the dark was not his intention, but it was a necessary transgression. He knew a spot where he could pull off the road just before Applecross Sands and enjoy an uninterrupted view of the clear, cloudless night sky. Glancing down at the binoculars and small telescope in the passenger footwell, he smiled, wondering how many stars he would be able to identify among the thousands he would see. With no competition from human-made terrestrial light sources, the sky would be a blaze of stars. His eyes flicked back to the route ahead, and he gasped in alarm. There was a body lying in the road. He slammed on the brakes, and the tyres bit into the surface for a moment before the frantic drumming of the anti-lock brakes brought the car to a halt. He peered out through the windscreen and could clearly see a man lying a few feet in front, illuminated in his headlight beams. Beyond the fallen man stood another car, a silver Audi, facing him on the narrow single-track road, its headlights extinguished, and the driver's door open wide. Flinging open his own door, he rushed over to the prostrate figure, oblivious to a momentary flash of bright light from the darkness up on the hill. He crouched beside the body. "Are you hurt?" he called, looking for injuries. "Can you hear me?" Then the body moved, the head turning up to stare at him with vaguely familiar, half-remembered eyes. "What?" he breathed, then heard a footstep behind him. He turned in time to see a baseball bat chopping through the air towards his head. He tried to dodge, but the blow caught him on the neck and he collapsed on the ground. The powerful figure wielding the bat took another swing and knocked him senseless. The man who had been on the ground was quickly on his feet, rolling the barely conscious driver onto a tarpaulin sheet and dragging him out of the way, while the batsman swiftly jumped into his victim's car, manoeuvring it to the edge of the road. There, the headlights picked out a short stretch of boulder-strewn scrub that fell away towards the edge of a cliff. Leaving the engine running, he leapt out, sprinting over to the Audi and starting it up. With his partner directing him, he positioned the Audi with its rear bumper touching that of the other car. They then bundled the injured driver, tracks of blood now smearing his face and neck, back behind the wheel of his car and slammed the door. A moment later, they had the Audi's engine revving before it shot backwards, launching the injured man's car towards the cliff. The Audi shuddered to a halt at the roadside, while its occupants watched the other car lurch and buck, crashing over boulders hidden in the heather, its headlight beams soaring skywards, before plunging back to earth. The car slowed, seemingly desperate to cling to the safety of the slope, and stopped when its front wheels dropped over the precipice, grounding its underside. It perched there for a moment, before the weight of its engine and the crumbling of the cliff edge sent it somersaulting out of sight. The two killers remained sitting in the Audi when another man appeared from the hillside, jogging past them, lighting his way with a torch pointed at the ground. He approached the cliff edge and peered over. On the rocks below, the car lay upside down like a dying turtle, its doors closed, only its wheels above water. The submerged headlights spread an eerie yellow glow around the front of the vehicle for a few moments, before they finally faded and died.